right, now you can have a seat.
Well, good morning, KCC. How you doing this morning? Good. Well, Grandpa Kenny and Uncle Philip isn't here today, so what do y'all want to do? We can do whatever we want. But I guess we should probably talk about the sermon, the series that we're talking about. But I got to tell you, we're this close from your substitute preacher pulling out the TV cart and having a movie played, because last week we had some trees down, which I'm sure some of you knew, so we came out here and cleared them out, and I got poison ivy. And when I get poison ivy, it's one of two things. Either it's just a little dot goes away, or it just blows up all over the place. And it started to do that. I'm like, oh no, and it got on my face, and I'm like, this is not good. Kenny and Philip aren't here. What are we going to do? But luckily, through the grace of God, through steroids, I'm fine, and we can get on and finish up this series, which, that's right, that does deserve applause. So, we're in a series called Things I Wish Jesus Didn't Say, which Philip in the last few weeks talked about some topics that Jesus said, something that was not easy to follow, not easy to hear, things that were like, oh, that kind of goes against what is comfortable for me. That's tough. I don't know if I can do that. And so if you haven't seen those, please go back in the last few weeks online and watch those. They are phenomenal sermons, so please check those out. And today, it's kind of no exception. Today is one of those things that we're going to look at that's difficult to follow. But I have some good news and bad news as far as today's sermon's concerned. What do you want first? Good news or bad news? Bad news. All right. The bad news is what we're going to talk about today is probably, I think, the hardest thing to actually follow in the whole Bible. The one thing that Jesus said that's like, ugh, that's going to hurt. That's going to be tough. And it's across the board for everybody. Some things are tougher for some people than others. This one, it's a tough one. So that's the bad news, is that you have something tough to do after today. The good news is, if you do this, if you take Jesus' command, you apply it to your life, it will give you an opportunity to shine God's light brighter on other people than any other command that I believe Jesus gives. And that is to love your enemy. That is tough to do, but man, that can just shine a light onto others. It's like, gosh, there's something different about that person. The way they act towards their enemy, the way they act towards other people. And enemy to us in today's society is really not that foreign of a term. We live in such a polarized world where everything's for me or against me. It's extreme. We hate it. We love it. We draw solid lines in the ground of like, this is me. Anybody on that side is not me and is against me. I mean, look at so many things in our life today. That's just the way we do it. That's just the way our society is set up today. I mean, even simple images can strike a passionate feeling, emotion inside you that's like, oh, I hate it, I love it. In fact, let's look at one on the screen. Yeah, Everybody in here right now has got some type of emotion towards that. And I don't think I've ever met anybody that's like, Donald Trump, yeah, take it or leave it, he's fine. Like everyone's like, hate him or love him. That's just the way it is. That's how we live our life in society. The next one that I want to look at is one that's even harder than that. It's one that is difficult to look at. It's one that has wrecked relationships. It's one that I struggled hard to put up on the screen. It's one that, I don't know, it could have eternal consequences for me. Let's go ahead and look at that. Yeah? That hurts. Anybody else feeling nauseous? I see you. It's true, though. We look at that, and it's like, oh, that hurts. For me, it hurts. If you know me, I'm a big U of M fan. My family are huge U of M fans. My father-in-law played football and baseball at U of M. We bleed blue and gold, blue and maize. So that's hard for him. But you know what? I want to lead by example. I want to show Pastor Philip that even I can love his horrendous team and show support and love them. So just for him today, yep, it hurts. Oh, yeah, I'm looking at my wife right now. I may need a ride home and in a place to stay for a couple days. But it's true. It's funny. We look at President Trump, we look at our rival sports teams, and we hate them, we love them, whatever it may be. But we look at people the same way. We still put them in boxes. We still draw lines. Sure, it may not be as severe as someone's out to get us and kill us or whatever, but we still draw those lines with people, where we have the people with us or we have the people against us. We're trained to draw lines in the sand the way our society is set up. But today in the text that we're going to look at, in the passage we're going to look at in Matthew, Jesus erases those lines and he gives us a new definition, a new perspective of what enemy and neighbor is. And that's my challenge today, is for us to look at that, to look at your lives of like, where's that enemy in my life? Who is my neighbor in my life? What's my perspective on that? I think that most of yours, even mine, going through and preparing for this, my perspective on enemy, neighbor has changed just by doing study on this. So Jesus talks about this in what is called the Sermon on the Mount. Now, a lot of you are probably familiar with Sermon on the Mount. It's Jesus' most famous teaching. And they call it Sermon on the Mount because it was kind of a natural outdoor amphitheater where there's like a little bit of a hill, and Jesus sat down and started talking to his disciples. And that's how they taught back in the day, is mostly the rabbis and the teachers would sit down and teach. And that's what he began to do. And he taught on a lot of different topics. And he would reference some of their laws and some of their ways of the ways that they lived, and then challenge them. He never changed any of them. A lot of them were laws from Moses, and he didn't change any of them, but he added to them. He added a heart component to them. He would say in several places, I think like in 6 times in Matthew, he says, "You've heard it said, but I say." And that's what he says to us today too. When we look at loving your enemy, he says that exact thing, starts it the same way. You have heard that it was said, "You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy." But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet only your brothers, what are you doing more than others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same? You, therefore, must be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. That is a lot. But everything that we need to know about what an enemy is, what a neighbor is, how we're supposed to treat them, why we're supposed to love them is all in this verse. And that's what I want to do today, is I want to unpack that and look at who our neighbor is, how to define that, who our enemy is, how to define that. Why did Jesus ask us to love those people? And how does he want us to do that? How does he want us to show that? Well, when you look at neighbor, all you have to do is look at the first verse. You've heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. So that part, hate your enemy, well, the first part, love your neighbor, he was referring to Leviticus 19, where it says, love your neighbor as yourself. Nowhere in the Old Testament will you find hate your enemy, because he says, you've heard it say, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. And he's referring to what the scribes of the day, these were like the modern day professors, people that wrote things down and taught. They added that. That was part of just their culture, is to hate your neighbor. and love yourself. But Jesus is saying, like, that's not what we're called to do. Back in those days, they saw neighbor in fact, the part that I liked about this was when you look at what they did, they actually took out how to love, which was meant to do, love your neighbors yourself. And they put in who to love. And that is a very firm line. They drew that line, just like we draw lines with our enemies. They drew that line. Like, let's make sure that everyone knows that we need to love our neighbors and hate the enemy, which is anybody that's not our neighbor. And to them back then in that day, their neighbor, the people that Jesus was talking to for the most part, were Jewish. So they seen their neighbor as their family, their immediate family. They're anybody that's Jewish. That is who their neighbor was. And that was a very close-knit family. It was a very close-knit group. They depended on each other for everything. If you think about it, they interacted with them every day, all the time, all throughout the day. They weren't as mobile as we were. So everything they did was right there. But their enemy, and you've seen in those verses, was the persecutor, the oppressor, the tax collector, the pagan. Pagan is another word for someone that's not Jewish. That's who they saw as enemy. And for them in that day, that was very real. There was people that was persecuting them, the Roman soldiers. There's people that wanted them dead. They could get in trouble for following this crazy Jesus dude and listening to him. So to them, it was very real. To us, it's similar. We still draw those hard lines. We don't necessarily in the United States have that oppressor. We don't have that person that's, we might get put in jail. We might get stoned. We might get killed for what we do. But we still draw lines. In fact, when Jesus looked at neighbor and enemy, when he talked about it, he used the word enemy, which in Greek, that word is elekthros, or is it ekthros? Ekthros. Sorry, I'm not Kenny. Ekthros. He's going to be so mad that I screwed up a Greek word. Ekthros. And that's really what that means back in that day was anybody you deem against you. That's your enemy. And that's kind of how we play it today. It's like, well, you're not for me, so you're against me. Again, we don't look at it as extremes of like, you hate me, you want me to be in jail or whatever, but we still draw lines. We still draw solid lines. And that's the type of enemy that we define, that Jesus was talking about. It's like, whoever you define as your enemy, that's your enemy, whether they know you or not. For us, that could be the person that we just blocked yesterday on Facebook because we didn't like what they said. We don't like their politics. We don't like how they said this or that. We blocked them. They're not for me. I don't like them. We deem them an enemy. So when we look at enemy, don't look at it as, Darth Vader. Don't look at it as someone that's so extreme. For us, it's not that. For us, it's just the person that we draw the line that's like, you're not with me, therefore I don't care about you and I'm not going to give you any attention. I don't want anything to do with you. You just stay over there and I'll stay on my side of the line. So in verse 45, this is where Jesus erases the lines. It says, he causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. That's not random. It seems kind of like a random thing when you just read it all the way through. It's like, well, what's that all about? And it's super simple. He doesn't divide. He doesn't draw lines. We do that. He gives his goodness, the sun and the rain, to everybody. Doesn't matter who you are, what you believe, nothing. He loves us and everyone and wants us to do the same. Those lines are gone. Think about it. If we already love our neighbor, Jesus commands us to love our enemy. That means an enemy is no one. It means an enemy is just a neighbor in disguise. And that's how we need to look at it. Now, Jesus isn't saying that we don't have enemies. We do. They did. The people that he was talking to, like I said, people were oppressing them. People wanted them dead. People would persecute them. You have people in your life that don't like you, that is against you, that wants ill will towards you. That can still be defined as an enemy. So he's not saying there's no such thing as an enemy, but he is challenging our perspective on how we look at them and how we act towards them. The point is, we need to see them as someone to show love to, just as much as we see our neighbor as someone to show love to. But why would we do this? I mean, that's hard. Like, I know they don't like me, and they know I don't like them, so why would I want to be nice to them? Why would I want to show them love? It's unnatural. It's unfair. It makes us feel weak. It makes us feel vulnerable, because if someone's out to get you and someone's angry at you and someone doesn't like you, the last thing you want to do is act like a coward and be like, oh, no, but I love you. Because we're like, no, we got a line. I'm going to stand up for my line. You're not going to cross my line. You're not going to come and offend me and not think I'm going to stand up for myself. You got it wrong. That's who we are as Americans. And I know I get that too. I'm very quick to like, you're not going to do that to me. And that's one of the things I was convicted through this as I was studying this. But why do we do this? Why is he asking us to do this? And it's simple. You are meant, if you call yourself a Christian, if Jesus is the Savior of your life, the King of your life, you are meant to be set apart. You are meant to be different. That is bottom line. There's no way around it. You are meant to be different and be seen as different, and that is awesome. That is great. That's where his light shines. Jesus addresses just that in verses 46 and 47. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Are not even the tax collectors doing that? And if you greet only your own people, what are you doing more than others? Do not even pagans do that? He's looking at that as, that's just transactional love. That's just the way the world works. You do good for me, I do good for you. You love me, I love you. That's the way it works. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is the way the world works. It's easy. If you love me, you do something good for me, I'll return that. That's just how we work. That's just what we do. He's saying even tax collectors do that. Even the pagans do that. That's nothing. But Jesus is asking you, he says it right in there, what are you doing different? He said that to them as he was sitting on that hill. And I don't know exactly how he said it, but I can see him saying it very emphatically. What are you doing different? How are you different than a tax collector? You guys, you Jewish people, the people that are sitting here watching me, listening to me, you think you're so different. You see them as the enemy, but you are exactly the same. If you're not doing something different, if you're not showing love, if you're not following the law, but yet still showing love, showing what God's kingdom is meant to be, you are no different. What are you doing different? So why do we love our enemies? It's not because they deserve it. It's not because it makes life easier. It's because that's what God is like. And that's who we're supposed to emulate. In verse 48, be perfect as your Father is perfect. So there you go. Go home, be perfect, do as he does. That's it. That's all you got to do. Told you, easy. But really, when he says perfect, that word is it's teleos. Got that one right, Kenny. So teleos, that just means to be mature, to be like him, to try to reflect his perfection, to reflect his love as he would. And that is what he's calling us to do, is to reflect his love. Loving your enemy is not about them. It's about becoming like him. It's not about them. Your enemy, when you think enemy, you automatically think, oh man, you get that emotion, you get that Ohio State I want to throw up in my throat feeling, and it's understandable. But that's not what he's talking about. It's not about them. It's not about how they're acting. It's about becoming like him. And when you do that, it changes you. It will transform you. It forces you, when you think of your enemy, they do something against you, they say something, whether it be on Facebook or in your face or to someone else, and someone else came and told you that this person said that this about you, when you stop right there, you don't react to that, it forces you to see them how God sees them, as someone to be loved, as someone to not retaliate against. It gives us an opportunity to be different and shine his light. And as soon as we do that, it breaks that cycle of hate where you just want to go back and forth. And again, think about just your everyday life, because it's simple. It's if you just social media, but you go back and forth all the time, like, oh yeah, they said this, well, I'm going to say that. Or like, well, that's a dumb video, why'd they do that? And then you put in there, like, well, why'd you do this? That's the same thing, that's still retaliation. So don't romanticize our enemies as someone that is so out to get us that we're going to be in prison if we don't do what they say. It's just that person that you draw the line and they're on the other side. So when we do that, it keeps their actions from controlling our heart and brings us peace. But don't miss this. That's not why we are to love. Those aren't the reasons why to love. Those are the results we get. That's the transformation we get when we show love. So why do we love? Simply to reflect the love of God to others. That's why we are to love our enemies. Because when God transforms you, he reveals himself through you. When God transforms you, when God changes your heart, you become somebody different. You start acting different because of something God taught you and convicted in you. It is inevitable that other people will see that. I'm sure you can finish this. They'll know we are Christians by our love. And that is as simple as it gets. We are showing our love by not reacting. We are showing our love by not reflecting that, by reflecting God's love back to them. But how do you do that? That's the part we wish Jesus didn't say, or at least you're about to, because now it's about application. The rest was just nice romantic ideas of what it could look like, what it would look like, how it should look like. But this next part, if we don't take this and apply this in our lives, you might as well just forget the first part, because this is what it's all about, how to love. Now Luke, we're in Matthew, as he recorded the Sermon on the Mount. Luke did the same thing, but we don't know for sure if it was the exact same sermon. They actually called it, I think, Sermon on the Plain, but it could have been the same. We don't really know, but it doesn't make a difference because Jesus, I'm sure, probably said this several times, but Luke's account actually adds a couple more things in there of how to love. So we're going to look at both of those verses. And in there, you can see he wants us to love by praying, doing good, and blessing them. Praying, doing good, and blessing them. But I think we need to take a step back and look at the type of love. Often, when we think love, we just think, you love your mom, you love your dad, you love your brother, sister, your wife, your husband, whatever it may be. That is not the type of love that Jesus is talking about. Jesus is talking about agape love. So take out the emotion. Take out the romantic feelings. Take out the like, oh, I love you so much. That's not it. This is about action. This is about doing. That's how God wants us to show love, is by doing. And that's what we're going to look at, is when we look at blessing and praying and doing good. This is about doing. So I want you to think about that person maybe that you're thinking of that, yeah, this is the person that I could see as my enemy. And this is what we need to do for them, with them, to them. Pray for them. Now, This is not, and I am guilty of this. Have you ever said the prayer where you're like, someone just really ticked you off? They did you wrong? And it may be 100% just. You may be right. You may be 100% right. They were a jerk to you. You weren't to them. That's just the way it is. But have you said this prayer of like, Lord, just show them that they're wrong. Show them their way. Show them how that's not how you want them to be. Where that's the whole goal of like, man, you show them God so I know I'm right. So they know I'm right. That is not the type of prayer that he wants us to pray. The prayer is very simple. Pray for peace for them. Pray for success for them. Pray for healing for them. And if you don't pray for any of those, just pray for God to do whatever it is that they need in their life to be done. Pray for them. But here's the trick to praying for them. Pray for them by name. It is hard to sit down and say a prayer and be like, Lord, the jerk on the second floor did this to me, blah, blah, blah. It's easy to pray that. But when you say, Lord, John just hurt me. This is making me mad. But Lord, I give that to you, and I just ask blessings for them. Do whatever it is in their life that they need. When you pray that prayer, it is hard to continue to see them as an enemy. It is hard to hold resentment towards them. That's part of where the transformation of your heart happens, is when you give that up to them and you pray for them by name. Do good to them. That's action. That's intentional. Do good towards someone instead of ignore them. That's what we usually do. And that's partially okay, because it's better than reacting, right? Someone makes you mad, and you're like, oh, no, and then you start to retaliate. Great, the first step was really good. You didn't retaliate. But when you ignore them, what are you doing any different than anyone else? That's your opportunity to let his light shine to them. Don't ignore them. Take that opportunity to do good for them. Just choose to show God's love. And doing good for them, it doesn't have to be that hard. It's not like you have to go over and say, hey, I want to clean your house. It could be just something super easy. Smile at them. I think about in high school, like the funny part is when I think about enemies, I was thinking like in high school, I could definitely identify some enemies. And it usually was through sports. Couldn't stand that guy. He upped me. He was better than me. He hit me hard or whatever it may be. That was easy. But I think today it's a little bit more difficult. But like in high school, I think, okay, if that person was my enemy and you're just walking down the hallway and he's coming this way and I'm going that way and he knows I don't like him and I know he doesn't like me, but if I just give him a smile or head nod, that is a little bit of sun, there's a little bit of ray, that's a little bit of shine of God to them. Because they're like, whoa, what? Like, why would he do that? That's weird. We don't like each other. Or even like on this sports court, like give him a high five, good shot, nice hit, whatever it may be. Do good. It could be maybe your neighbor just had a new grandbaby. So you send them a card saying, congratulations on your new grandbaby. Even though your neighbor knows you can't stand each other because you cut your lawn too close to their lawn that they weren't ready to cut yet, they're going to be like, what? We just argued 3 days ago about the fact that they weren't supposed to weed whack by my fence because I'm trying to let those daisies grow, whatever it may be. It's still, that sets you apart. Other people aren't going to do that. That sets you apart. Do good to them. And bless them. That was the third thing he said. Bless them. Back in that day, a lot of times when they say bless, it was how you talk about someone, how you speak to someone, about someone, to someone. So blessing was often referred to as just how you're speaking. And I was thinking, You know, I have been, and I can say even recently, been in circles talking to some people, and they were talking about someone that bothered them, they didn't like, that you could clearly tell there was a line. They were on the other side of it, and I didn't say anything. You know, you just kind of go, yeah, and you think you're doing good because you're not saying anything. I just made an enemy of that person that they see as enemy in their eyes because I didn't say anything different. I just kind of confirmed. I'm like, yep. I didn't do anything different. I could have blessed them. That doesn't mean I have to stick up for them like, no, you're wrong. They're great. They're awesome. But just don't be silent. And that happens all the time. That may be the most difficult thing to do because all the time are you talking to someone that starts talking poorly about someone else and you just get into it. And that is something that I do just because sometimes it's just uncomfortable. It's just like, I just want the conversation to be done. So I'm going to let them go ahead and do that. But again, we're not supposed to ignore. We're supposed to do. God's calling us to do, to show agape love, action. Say something. Because that is going to shine that light. It could be even an online compliment. I know I keep on going back to social media, but that's where we live today. You see someone that you don't like, that you have an argument with, maybe it was your boss that fired you, but for some reason you're still friends on Facebook, and you go in there and you be like, man, your dog's so cute. Man, I love that picture. Oh, that's funny. Like, oh, congratulations on your grandson who hit a home run last week. They're going to be like, what? Thanks, but that's weird. But if you continue to do that, imagine that light that they're going to experience. Imagine what they're going to be thinking. They're going to be like, all right, there's something different there. I don't know what it is, but this person's different. And eventually, they'll see it. They'll see that it's our love that we have for God, that we're reflecting towards them. And it's difficult to do, but it would be transformational. So, who came to your mind? I'm sure, I hope, that you're sitting here thinking, who's my enemy? Who is that person that I've got that hard line drawn with? Who's that person in your life? Maybe you came up with no one. And to be honest, when I first started thinking about that, I really didn't come up with no one. I'm not really a grudge holder. I'm not really an argumentative person. But then I started thinking a little deeper, and I'm like, well, if we're talking about that ekthos, just the people we deem as our enemy, we deem as different, we deem as someone that's on the other side of that line. There are people. How many times have you heard people say, like, I'm not going to give money to the homeless. They're just going to take that and use it for drugs. They need to get a job. Well, there you go. That might be your enemy. What about the Democrat that believes absolutely different than you? That transgender group. What about them? Does that fit? I think it does. It absolutely does. So when you think of that person, it may not be just that person. It may be a group of people, but you still have the same opportunity to do good, bless them, and pray for them as it was an individual person. The one thing that did come to my mind, and I contemplated on whether to say this or not because I didn't want to ruffle feathers, but this is an opportunity to maybe ruffle some feathers for good. We don't have to look any further than the corner of Sprinkle and H. Right here in our own community, Comstock Township, I don't know how many of you are familiar with it, but it is ridiculous. You want to talk about drawing lines? They have drawn lines. Half of the board has a petition to get the other half of the board off. And that other half has got a petition to get the other half off. Dana literally will come out and laugh and like, oh my gosh, are you really watching an entire board meeting for an hour and a half? I'm like, oh yeah, you would not believe what these people are saying. This lady's got a name of Queen Bee, and this lady has got this, and they just take opportunities, during the public moments where you can come up and speak and talk. All they do is attack. And it's right here in our hometown, the people that are making rules and laws and regulations over what's going on in our community is so divided. That's all they see as enemies. Could you imagine what would happen if they erased those lines? Could you imagine what would happen if those were erased? And they're like, you know what? I cannot disagree with you more. In fact, I don't even like you very much, but you know what? You and I are sitting in the same row, on the same panel, trying to make our township better. Man, that would be awesome. Put that aside. Show love. It only takes one person to do that, and God's love is contagious and can go through there. But it takes you. Think about that in your life. Maybe there's something that's like, oof, it's not just my enemy. Me and everybody in my group that I work with all can't stand this boss. Maybe you're the one person that needs to change how you speak. Maybe you need to bless them. And then that's going to start the ball rolling of God's light being shown. So whoever it is, I want to challenge you. Well, first, I want to ask you to pray for the board in Comstock Township. Pray for them. They need it, we need it. So that's just a favor I'm asking you. But I do have a challenge for you. Think about that person, that group, whatever it may be, and this is what I want you to do. Pray for them by name. Not for success, not for anything, or pray for them for success, pray for them for healing. Pray for them by name for God to work in their life. Bless them. Speak well of them and to them. Do good. If they have a need, fulfill it. If they have a need, do it. And show them mercy and grace. It's as simple as what would Jesus do? If you're confused on how to treat them, just say, well, what would Jesus do? Do that. And here's your optional one. Again, back to the social media, because that's where I think the fire is that we need to put out. Maybe it's a group you belong to. Maybe it's the internet, social media, all together that you need to take a break from. Do that. Because remember, the first step, it's your heart can be transformed, which then will show His love. But it's hard to do that when you put yourself right in the middle of it, when you're scrolling, like, oh, I wonder what's going on there, and then you just kind of get fired up. You think scrolling's no big deal. Every single thing that you see that you disagree with goes in your head, goes into your heart. So maybe that's something that you need to do. That's a challenge that I give you. So we'll have people up here on both sides that want to pray with you. Every Sunday, we'll have people up here that want to pray with you about whatever it is that you need prayer for. And maybe today that's about your enemy. Because you're like, oof, I was convicted, and this is going to be difficult. Because the last thing I want to do is bless this person. The last thing I want to do is pray for this person. And if there's that one person that's really, really like, I don't know, that's the person. I can tell you right now, that's the person that you need to do this for. But they would love to pray with you after service to help you start off on the right track. So if our goal is to show transformational love that reflects the love of God, we need to look no further than the cross. Jesus was beaten. He had thorns crushed through his skull. He had a spear put through his side, nails in his hands and feet. You want to talk about an enemy, people that are doing that to you, that qualifies. And what does he say? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That's the ultimate example. That's where we need to look. I just want to end today in prayer for you, prayer for our township, as we go from here, and that you can shine the light on to your enemies. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for even the hard things, the things that we wish you didn't say. Thank you for those, because those things that you said that is hard for us to follow are the things I know that you want us to follow most, because that is where your love is going to shine. It is our job to show that we are different and that they can be different and that your love is transformational, not just for us, but for everyone. So, Lord, I just pray that we can be used in that way. And I pray for our township, Lord. They're very divided. And just pray that this church that sits there in their township can be a beacon of light to them. We pray that we can help in any way that we can to show them that your love is the way to go. Thank you so much for all that you've done, for all that you're going to do. We praise you. We love you. Amen. And Craig, I got a shirt for you after this that you can have.